In the next two segments, we want to build on our discussions of the origins of war to talk about World War I, U.S. participation in that war, and the U.S. role in the peace settlement that terminated World War I. This war embedded the United States in European politics and the larger global order. It also created a political opportunity for the United States to expand its global influence by challenging the imperial systems of European great powers. So let's begin with a brief outline of this historical significance of World War I. The world that we have now was really made in the period from 1914 to 1919. It marked a clear break in the historical progression of human civilization. New innovations in political and military organization unleashed an incredible scale of killing. Approximately 10 million soldiers died, and another 7 million civilians lost their lives in World War I. The world had not seen organized violence among competing armies on that scale before. And this conflict set the stage for even more appalling casualty figures in World War II. The war also activated incredible social and political changes. The empires of Russia, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottomans collapsed. The modern Middle East was constructed by the European powers. Powerful transnational social movements proved capable of provoking imperial collapse and revolution. And for our purposes, this war left the United States standing as the most powerful country in economic, political, and military terms in the world. So what was this thing, and why was it so significant? Why did they fight? The war was triggered by a commitment problem. The Russians and the Austro-Hungarian empires were competing over influence in the Balkans. The Russians were growing in military strength and encouraging their quasi-allies, the Serbians, in both Serbia and the Bosnian province of Austria-Hungary, to destabilize the Austro-Hungarian Empire by encouraging a domestic revolution there. The Austro-Hungarians went to war in 1914 because Russia and its allies in the region could not commit to restrain their demands. They could not commit to respecting the territorial integrity of the Austro-Hungarians. Because as Russia grew stronger, it would require more capabilities to encourage and protect the Serbs.
Now, the spark that ignited this war occurred when a young Bosnian Serb by the name of Gavrilo Princip assassinated the Archduke, or what we might think of as a vice president of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, in June of 1914. The Archduke was named Franz Ferdinand. The assassination pushed Austria-Hungary to declare war on Serbia for a number of reasons, largely centered around how the Serbian national movement, of which Princip was a part of, threatened the Austro-Hungarian Empire with dissolution. This was a story for the Austro-Hungarians about fighting a war to preserve its multinational empire. If Serbia sought to incorporate Serbs in Bosnia, then perhaps Romanians in Hungary might try to do the same, to secede from Austria-Hungary and attempt to integrate with Romania. In other words, several small territories of the Austro-Hungarian Empire might try to seek their own independence if Serbia, and the Bosnian Serbs in particular, were allowed to secede from Austria-Hungary. Austria-Hungary went to war to try and quash national movements from breaking off from their empire. So this local Balkan conflict then quickly sparked a world war because of a complicated network of interlocking alliances in Europe. Russia anticipated that Germany would fight on the side of its ally, Austria-Hungary, marked here in red on the slide. Germany and Austria-Hungary are marked in red, right? So consequently, Russia began to mobilize its army, calling up reserve troops and moving them to its borders with both countries during the July crisis that followed the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. So Germany responded to Austria-Hungary's declaration of war against Serbia by declaring war on Russia and its ally, France. With this decision, Germany effectively launched a preventive war against Russia for many reasons, which are described in more detail in sections 9.2 and figure 9.5 of your textbook. Germany worried that a huge program of military rearmament in Russia that had been ongoing since about 1909 was shifting the balance of military power in Europe toward Russia's advantage. We're going to go to the textbook here shortly. And you could see right here, so this is one of the tabs in the map. The fall 1913 tab describes some of the consequences and dynamics of this escalating arms race on land in Europe that was shifting the distribution of power away. German leaders believed it was shifting the distribution of power against Germany and in favor of Russia and its allies. So Germany worried that it wouldn't be able to fight a war against a strengthening Russia in a few years and be able to defeat it because of Russia's great program of military rearmament. Germany also worried how Russia's military strength would allow it to challenge Austro-Hungarian interests in the Balkans, particularly in Serbia, because there was this quasi-alliance between the Russians and the Serbians. Germany worried that Russia could not commit to restrain its demands for political revisions in the Balkans, like independence for the Bosnian Serbs. And these independence movements would then simultaneously threaten Germany's main alliance partner, Austria-Hungary. So thus, this shift in the distribution of power in Europe activated a commitment problem that encouraged Germany to launch a preventive war against Russia. Now, Germany's plan to defeat both France and Russia rested on a quick and decisive defeat of France by capturing Paris through something known as the Schlieffen Plan. This military gamble, though, led the German military to attack France through Belgium. The occupation of Belgium then brought Great Britain into the war on the side of France, Russia, Belgium, and Serbia. Sound complicated? Well, that's because it was. But this war, especially the events leading up to it, is really the most studied conflict in all of international relations. The main point here is that over the course of a few weeks in the summer of July 1914, Europe was at war, and many countries were brought into this war through this interlocking network of alliances. But again, really the underlying dynamics was driven by a shift in the distribution of power and what we've talked about as a commitment problem. There was a commitment problem between Serbia and Austria-Hungary, a commitment problem between Russia and Germany, both of which created the incentives to fight a war in the summer of 1914.